Workflow automation will make your life easier. How do we make use of workflow automations? Well, we need to go to the settings and then we scroll down and we get to where it says automation and then workflow automation. So before we add the workflows, you need to make sure that you are in the right zone because some workflows might be based on time. How do we add a workflow? We simply come here where it says add workflow. And now we need to name that workflow automation rule. So in this case, I want to create a workflow which is triggered when a person is created. I can add any kind of description to the name that I have there, but this one will suffice for the moment. What kind of workflow are we going to create today? So we're going to make an example of a workflow where someone is created within the system. Then the next thing is that they are tagged. A tag is added, which is the first action, adding a tag. The second action would be to add a pipeline record. And the third action would be to create a task. Let's start with the trigger. Now the trigger here is a person. When a person is created, so there are many other versions of this trigger, but we're going to choose when a person is created. Now we're going to the trigger conditions. The trigger condition here that I would like to work with, it comes from the contact type. If the contact type is equals to a potential customer, whenever we create a person and the person is a potential customer, then that is my trigger. Both of these filter conditions can work in this regard, so we ignore that one. Now let's go to creating the actions that will come after the trigger has been activated. So the first one we said would like to create a tag. In this case, when creating a tag on a person, we actually use the update function. And then we go to the person. Then after that, we then look for the tags because the tags are attached to the person. The next function says append. What are we going to append? I'd already created tags within the system. So one of the tags is named potential customer. So as you type, it comes out and then you click potential customer. So whenever this is triggered, the first action that happens is a tag is added. The second action is to create a pipeline record. We click create and then we choose pipeline record, not lead, but pipeline record. Whenever we're creating a pipeline record, we require a name, the pipeline, and the primary contact. The name, we can just write new client. In my case, this won't work, especially when we have so many clients. We need to differentiate each record in the pipeline. Because remember, the pipeline tracks where the customer is in the sales process. So we need to identify the record itself. This brings us to another section. We need to make use of formulas to know the name. We need to attach the name of the person who has been created. So how do we do that? We change this from standard to use a formula. This allows us to enter variables. Now there are several variables and I'm just going to give you a link in the description below which shows you a page which contains all the variables that you can make use of. In this case, I want to put the full name of the person, so I'm just going to use the full name variable. So the record in the pipeline will be named after the customer's name. Now, as we go with the pipeline, we need to choose which pipeline we want to put this full name. So I'm just going to choose custom computer build. This is a pipeline I had already created. Now we go on to the primary contact. When we get to the primary contact, we might start to think, let me type in the name, but remember we need something dynamic. We might think of putting the variable full name, but the problem is, in this case, Copper CRM specifically wrote an article that said that we must use ID as the variable there. We should not use full name or name, just use ID. That's how they require us to go. If we don't do that, then it won't be able to add the primary contact. So the next thing that we do is to add another field, by clicking Add Fields. The field that I need right now is the stage. I need to specify where the record would start in the pipeline. In this case, I want it to start with the consultation. I can add more fields, but for now, it's fine. I need to create an additional action where we create a task that reminds me to call the client once the client has been created in the system. All I need to do is to click create, not update, then click task. Now we need to name the task, but as we indicated previously, the task has to be named using the person's name. So in this case, I would use the full name. The issue is whenever we create tasks, the tasks should be specific. For example, if it's a call task, I should be able to quickly see that I need to make a phone call. We need to make use of what we call formulas. So instead of making use of just putting the name there, would need to make use of formulas. And I'll also put the link to the page, the same page that talks about how to use formulas, how to concatenate, how to add things together so that they form meaningful information. In this case, I'm going to use a function called concatenation. What it does is it adds the word call. Now there's a small space in front of call, and then comes the full name. After that, we also add another field. This helps us to know the activity type. In my case, I want to make a phone call, not a meeting, SMS, or an email. So I know that after this task comes in, it's a task to make a phone call. I can also add to say, let me add the priority to make it a high priority, something that needs to be done today. I can also put a description. This usually helps if we are assigning these tasks to different members in the organization so that they know what they need to do. We can add a description to say, call the new client to organize a consult. You have also other options that you can make use of by harnessing the power of formulas. For example, in this case, we can create a due date. Let's say everything has to be done within the same day. So I'm going to use a formula that helps the system to put the current date as the day to finish this task. So there are many other, we can even put the time at which the task should be finished. But for now, we're just going to leave it as it is. So now we've created a trigger, which is going to trigger for a tag, a pipeline record, and also a task. Once we do that, we save. Now, once the rule is created, it's not on, it's not activated. We need to say back to workflow automation. Once we do that, we then click this plus sign, and then it is updated and active. The next thing that we have to do now is then to test it to see if this works. And I'm going to create a record now. So to create a record, we say add person. I'm going to fill in with new information there. I filled in the information for the client, but remember, our trigger requires us to choose a potential customer. That is done, and there's no tag there. Once I click save, the system will then create that information that we required, those tasks or those 3 actions that need to be done. By the time I made this video, Copper CRM sometimes takes a bit of time to run its workflows. So it might take a minute, sometimes it takes a few seconds. So once you do that, just give it a bit of time and then it will run the processes. So now let's take a look at what has been done by the system. So as you can see, May has been added here, and we can see that the tag has been added as a potential customer. Everything else has been added. So the first task has been done. The second task was to create a record in the pipeline. So we go to pipelines, and I'm choosing the computer build pipeline. As you can see there, May has been added, and we can now actually move May in the pipeline. So that is done. Let's go to the tasks. When we go to the tasks, we can see that the task call May is there, phone call, it has been set, even the due date is today, it has been set as well. So all the tasks or all the actions have been carried out by the trigger. So this is how we make use of workflow automation.